You're listening to Shift Everything, a podcast by West 40, where we challenge the status quo in education. I'm your host, Chris Coffey. Welcome to another edition of Shift Everything. I'm Chris Coffey, and today we are going to explore what it is to be a student advocate. Student advocates are a major part of West 40 here in West Cook County. They are in many of our school districts and the individual schools, a lot of middle schools and high schools, and now we're getting into elementary schools, but you might not know what student advocacy is. We have two people to tell us, Jimmy Mortellaro and Daralisha Kimbrough. They are student advocates at Riverside Brookfield High School. They've been here for a couple of years. They've invited us. They've answered our request to interview them about what it is to be a student advocate. First of all, thank you very much for joining us on Shift Everything.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Student advocacy. For someone who might not know exactly what that is, what is it? Is it teaching? Is it being a support system for a student?
Yeah, the best way to describe being an advocate is just being a person and being the person for students in schools and being their go-to person. We're called advocates, but it looks like coaching. It looks like mentorship. It's being that person, that trusting adult in a building that a student can come to for really whatever purpose. And so we try to be that person in a student's life that when they come to school, they may not like school, they may not like anything about school, but at least they have that one person, and we like to be that one person.
Daralisha, it sounds kind of like, okay, counseling, but it's not the same as a school counselor. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say like similar to kind of how Jimmy was saying, it's about elevating students' voice and elevating their story. I think a lot of students, when they come into this building, oftentimes they're kind of seen as the same, right? Like everybody's walking into that door, same background, we're here to do school, like this, that's it, that's all. Unfortunately, that's not the reality for a lot of students. So some students need more people on their team to make sure that their story is accurately being heard and they get the resources and support that they need. And I think that that is kind of what Jimmy and I do as advocates.
How does a student wind up as part of your group? How do they find their way to a student advocate?
So the way it works at RB is that we kind of go through a process. So we have meetings with the school counselors, social workers, and psychologists twice every week. Through there is where the counselors kind of identify based on attendance, academics, or just behavior if they're getting into a lot of trouble. Hey, I think this student might need like some support. Like, are you willing? Is this somebody who will be a good fit for the program? 9 times out of 10, I would say every student that has been brought up in small teams that has been identified to need this resource has been an accurate referral. And so once we kind of sit down as a team and decide that that is how we're moving forward, the counselor fills out the referral form, and then the process kind of starts from there. So we talk to parents, we talk to students, hey, this is what this program is, this is what we're here to do, and then we just kind of start the work.
Yeah, and the collaboration, I'd say, has been awesome here at RB. When counselors, advocates, and administrators, when we all come together those Tuesdays and Wednesdays in small teams, we really are problem solving a student issue. And then when it's like, hey, is this a possible good referral to Tapestry? Daralisha and I jump on that as soon as we can, and then we start to build those relationships. And it's been really, really positive here at RB to see that.
So we're at the beginning of a brand new school year, the 2023 school year, 2023-2024. Have you received students in your classroom yet? And how receptive are they to you when they first start the process?
So it's always funny. I'll answer that second question when a new student is referred to us and we have those initial meetings. Like, we both let our personalities come onto the table right away, and I think students see us and they're like, who are these people? Who are these bright, bubbly, positive people just coming in trying to get to know me, right? So we let that authenticity kind of show to the students, and then it makes for really good rapport building.
Yeah, we have not welcomed any new Tapestry students to the school year yet. We did have a meeting today where the assistant principal, which is kind of our supervisor here, she did kind of let us know that she let counselors know to kind of be on the lookout for students who might need that, so that they can start sending referrals our way. But
They'll come. They're coming for sure.
What about students, someone who might have been a sophomore last year, now they're a junior? Do they look forward to coming back to see you? How does that work?
yes, I would say a lot of our students, like that very first day of school, it was late start, which means school did not start until 9 a.m., usually starts at 8 a.m. I unfortunately was late. I was not used to waking up on time after summer. But when I got here, the room was full of like all of our kids from last year, like really excited to see us, tell us what their summer was about. We were like contacting them over summer, but obviously it's different when you're like in person and, you know, they can't say everything, you know, over the phone. So it's been really cool. Like a lot of them drop by just to like say hi, even if we're not checking in. Some of them will purposely take this hallway, even if their classes are nowhere near here, just to like drop by and say hi. So it's really cool.
Yeah, it has been very impactful to see our work kind of look like it has when students are coming into the room because they want to see us. That first day of school specifically, we had like 20 kids in the room to start, and it was my second year, and so like to be like, hey, how was your summer, and just kind of pick up where we left off. Kids are coming in here, and Daralisha and I are always working to redirect them back to class, and that's a good thing and a bad thing, right? We want them obviously to have those good habits, get to class, but knowing that they identify with us in the building and we can be their people is what it's all about.
So what happens when they're in this room?
A lot of stuff happens when they're in this room. They eat lunch in this room. Not so much this year, more often last year, like obviously because this year is just getting started. Students would come in, they would sit at this table and do work. Some of them would just kind of need a break, so they would sit on the couch, open up the fidget drawer, find a fidget, chill out. Some students will pull up a chair next to your desk, tell you about their day or like a dilemma that they're having, issue that they're having with a teacher that we're trying to problem solve. Sometimes we sit here and we play Uno, Connect Four. It's really like a variety of things that goes on, and it's really based on what that student needs when they walk through the door.
Yeah, I'd also say I love that we get to talk about the room just because I think the room is our greatest strategy. We intentionally design a place, and I feel like this is unanimous with all Tapestry programs, ALAP programs, create a space that kids feel safe and want to come into. And I think Daralisha and I have put a lot of intention into what we want this space to be, whether it's the cozy corner over there or just this table, our desks, the proximity. To answer the question, right, when kids come in here, we try to make this a place where they can feel comfortable and we can grow. We've had so many powerful conversations in this room, not even by design, right? Just free flowing. A kid comes in, they speak their truth, other kids chime in, and then before you know it, we're doing true social emotional learning. I'd say one of our best days that we've had in here is when we did an intentional SEL activity where we just talked about quotes, right? Which quotes resonate with you the most? And we got to hear some amazing people, amazing students talk about things that really resonate with them. And then we just reflected and talked about it. And this room really gives us the opportunity to help students grow. And it's one of our favorite parts of the job.
Could you go into it a little bit more about why it's important that a kid has a place to just relax? If something is stressing them out, they can come here, they can see two trusted adults that are not teachers, that are not giving them homework, but they're an ear for them.
Yeah, I think this kind of goes back to what I was speaking to earlier. A lot of students are coming into this building with a lot on their plate, a lot on their shoulders. And so to kind of walk into specifically a school building where you know you're going to class, you have to learn, you're going to have homework. A lot of times, like, students aren't even regulated enough to pay attention to what's going on in their classes. So sometimes that 5-10 minutes that they need to kind of just sit down and reset or kind of speak about what it is that they're struggling with just to get it off of their chest is really super important. I think as we know, right, like when you are operating from the part of your brain that is not regulated, like nothing else that is going on matters. It's not going to stick. It's going to go in one ear and out of the other. So I think just having this space for students to be able to come and kind of reset and be regulated so that they can go confidently throughout the rest of their day is super, super important to like Jimmy and I specifically, because we know kind of like what that feels like. And so to be able to provide that to students is, I think it's beautiful.
Yeah. The term safe space, right, I feel like has kind of been played in society where it's almost the connotation is a little bit negative. It shouldn't be, but I feel like that's where we're at in society. But safety is the name of the game. If we can create a space where a kid just can go in school, like where they actually just feel welcome and loved and cared for, like the question of how you motivate students or how you get them in the building, give them a place where they want to go to. And a lot of kids don't want to come to school. So the fact that we can create that for them is what it's all about.
What mindset do you have to have as a student advocate to come in and be ready to be that support system?
You have to have a very strong mindset and a very patient mindset. Mm-hmm. We definitely have students that test us and push us, and that's part of the job for sure.
I think to add to that, an acronym that the organization that I worked at before here used a lot was QTIP, which is quit taking it personal. I think a lot of times when we are in classes or teachers when they're in classes and students are acting out, they're not listening, it's very personal. Like, well, what did I do for the student to behave this way? And I think that we've been in this like field long enough to know that how students are reacting towards us has nothing to do with us and everything to do with how they're choosing to process what it is that they are going through. And so I think just understanding that and letting the students know that we understand that as well. Like, I understand you're frustrated today. I know it's not personal, but I do want to get to the bottom of, why you're acting this way or why you're choosing to take it out this way. I just think once you stop taking things personal, like especially in high school, because teenagers can be rude. They can be rude. The attitudes can be really off the wall.
Yep. The delusion is crazy.
Thank my mother every day for having to deal with my sisters and I when we were at this age. But I think once you kind of realize that it really genuinely has nothing to do with you and they know that you care and they know that you're just trying to help, I think that is really what the mindset had. Like, you just have to stop taking it personal. Like, it has nothing to do with us.
Yeah, I'll echo that really quickly. The mindset is to care, right? If you can come in and just your job is to care about these students through unconditionally, that has a very positive effect. So when they come in and they're mad and they're sassy or they just like don't want to be talked to, not taking it personally is phenomenal advice and a great mindset to operate out of, because then you get to see past that secondary emotion of anger or whatever they're experiencing, and you really can get to impact them.
Is there a goal, like, okay, at the end of the semester, we want our grades to be up. We want to attend school a lot more frequently. Or is there more of an emphasis on celebrating the small wins?
That's a great question.
I would say it's a little bit of both.
100%.
We definitely meet with students at the beginning of the year. Like, I know Jimmy and I have started to do this week. And we sit down and we make goals for the semester for the students that we've had on our caseload, for last school year, kind of looking at the goals we set last year. Like, okay, how can we move forward? What do we need to work on this year? So they definitely have overarching goals that they will want to achieve by the end of the school year. But like, we check in with them weekly. So we are celebrating the small wins. Like, if a student has a goal to, make it to school at least four times a week on time, that's the overarching goal. So like, say they come a week and they're on time 3 days out of that week. Like, hey, you made it 3 days. Like, you're almost at your 4. And so I think that like constant positive reinforcement, it works.
Definitely. We'll celebrate that.
Yeah.
And we're a part of schools, right? So we want to help them with the academics, and we want to make sure that we're there to support them in what school is ultimately about, what an overarching big goal is for everybody. So we definitely celebrate the academic goals, but I definitely try to make it a positive intention to we'll talk about school, we'll talk about the homework, we'll talk about getting to class, but I think a goal is just to help them grow, right? Being that caring adult that just, whether it's a relationship issue that they're having or whether it is an emotional issue that they're having, if we can work through that and build off of that and help them build that skill, those are the goals that I always look forward to working with and seeing come to fruition.
Do you have to make sure that you're up to date on math and science and social studies in case they come in with a question saying, hey, I was just in this class, I just don't get it?
I will usually pass those questions off to Daralisha. As my schooling, it's when you don't use it, you lose it, right? And for some reason, Daralisha hasn't lost it yet, so she gets all the math questions.
Yeah, I get all the math questions. I love math. If I could be anything else in this world, it would be an algebra teacher, absolutely. But that's, I think, when you just use your resources. Like, science is not really my strong suit. So, okay, who's your teacher? Like, let's see when they're free. Let's go chat with them. Let's see if they're willing to work with you after school. Sometimes they do like interventions for certain subjects. So the students who are struggling in math, my knowledge kind of stops at algebra. When you get to geometry, algebra 2 or trig, that's where you kind of lose me. So, okay, let's go to the math department, see if they're having a math intervention that they're doing this year that we can kind of get you to be a part of so you can get that support. So I think it's a little bit, and I passed the history questions to Jimmy because that was not my strong suit. So we each have things that I think that we quote unquote specialize in that we're comfortable helping students with. But if it's anything that like Jimmy and I are not comfortable helping that student with, we will utilize our resources here and just collaborate with teachers.
And to go back to like the advocacy piece, right? There's two things that we do. One, we do advocate if a student needs help, how can we get them that help, right? And it's awesome to have that person in the building. But kind of what Daralisha just spoke about, who can you go to? So teaching them that skill of, okay, you have this issue that you need to solve. How do you go about that? And getting them to their math teacher or a math resource or their case manager is something that we enjoy doing.
What's the most rewarding part of this experience for you? Do you get feedback saying, hey, I talked to Jimmy. He's making a really big turnaround in science class. And he says a lot of it is because of your help. Do you hear stuff like that? Is that when you know that you're making an impact?
Yeah, I think we definitely hear that. And I think we've heard it multiple times throughout last year and this year. And that's always great for the ego boost, right? To know that it's a thankless job. Education is a thankless job. But I think like the most rewarding thing is the seed that you plant and then it grows later, right? When you really see a turnaround at the end of the year, like quarter one is always a tough time of the year because that's when you're building all the new habits. And then you see it kind of grow in quarter two and quarter three. But like last year for quarter four, for me, just it wasn't necessarily words, but just the actions of students doing what we have practiced through the entire year. That's incredibly rewarding, right? It's a thankless job, but when you do get those thank yous, it goes a long way.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say for me, the most rewarding part is seeing like the growth in the students, like just as time goes on, like just thinking back to the first couple of conversations that I would have with the student and how closed off, not really willing to talk about like feelings, emotions, defensive, to like now them coming in here just, I guess, voluntarily talking about what it is that they're going through, or just feeling comfortable to like come in and talk to you about anything. And especially like our students who struggle with anxiety, comparing when they first kind of got referred to the program to like now how they're self-regulating and like getting themselves like back to class kind of with minimal support from us, I think for me is like the most rewarding part.
So do you think advocacy, what you two do at RB, it could be used at schools all across the country?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna speak to that. Just there's always this question of how do we motivate kids, or how do we get kids to do X, Y, and Z? And I think the answer is so easy. To use a fancy word, it would be self-efficacy, right? The number one factor for kids to become self-efficient or to get them to do what they need to do on their own will is a caring adult. And there's tons of studies to support that. I wish I could quote the person who came up with that study right now. But if you pair a student with a caring adult and you have that relationship and you foster that and you grow it like a flower, it can truly have a phenomenal impact on a student. And that's what we get paid to do. We are instructed to have kids, to care for kids, to love them unconditionally, to support them as much as we can. It's a very restorative way of doing it. It's a new way of doing it, but it's the way to do it. And that's how you impact kids. You pair them with a caring adult. You give them a role model that can help them with whatever they need, and the results speak for themselves.
Well, Jimmy Mortellaro and Daralisha Kimbrough, student advocates for West 40, working out of Riverside Brookfield High School. in the Chicagoland area. Thank you very much for joining us on Shift Everything and describing to us what student advocates do and the impact you make. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for listening to Shift Everything. We want to hear your thoughts and bold ideas and share your educational accomplishments. To join the conversation, email us at shifteverything@west40.org.